It is a brand new year. 2022 was an amazing year for low prices in crypto, but not an amazing year for high appreciation. Will 2023 be any different? Well, we will look at what the price action is looking like in these early days for January 2023 with price analysis expert Paul from Definity. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain. If you like money in crypto and you're looking for a seasoned investor take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family. Do know I'm not a financial advisor. Paul is not a financial advisor either. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul invests in many, many markets. We do want to thank our Patreon members. We have a private Discord that our Patreon members get access to. We also have a free Telegram group that you can join below with a fantastic community. Our admins frequently purge the bots and we kick people that are toxic. So it makes for a first-rate community of intelligent people to join and get ideas from or bounce your ideas off of. Now, make your rain on that like button and strap in for the show. Let's welcome Paul.
Well, Happy New Year to everybody, and let's hope this is a much better one. Perhaps we don't really need to hope. It seems like we are due a very good year in all asset markets. The question is, when will we get liftoff? And always the early part of the year, i.e. the first 2 weeks, is usually indicative of people buying shares because they adjust their portfolios after their Christmas period.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't read too much into the price action just yet. But I still think that the outlook, the macro themes point to a basing of the crypto markets and a continuation of a weaker dollar and stronger stocks. So that I'm not changing that view. I still think that's what's going to happen.
I'm excited for this year. Now, is last year exciting? Well, not in the way that we got massive price appreciation. What it's exciting for is low prices in order to buy low. And like the old saying goes, what goes up must come down. Well, in these types of markets with a technology that's continuing to gain mass adoption, what goes down must go up. And so will that be this year? That is the bigger question, is will it be this year? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I tend to think that crypto is going to continue to perform differently than it used to, where everything ran with Bitcoin. I think we'll see some individual parts of the markets take off ahead of others during certain time periods, kind of like we saw a little bit last year, but definitely the year before and the year before that.
Interesting. So more of a fragmentation rather than a broad. I think that will probably categorize where we see the low, because there's a lot of fear in the market still. And when we have a look at the charts, we can see that those bears, they haven't pushed it any lower, which is, we're starting to get the memes going around. I just saw a couple on Twitter of, Bitcoin's year and these guys in this truck that going into the water and it all collapses and stuff. And so that's usually a sign that we're near the end of a trend when you get those types of things coming out. But yeah, that's interesting. We're looking to see which markets are going to break within the markets that we've been asked to look at. And I've had a very quick look at them just before we came on air. I also noticed that there's, like, for example, Litecoin seems to be breaking up. That's not in it, but that is starting to move higher. And I want to see basically more of that. So we're starting to see some signs of life. We're seeing a little bit in terms of some of the majors are just holding, but you could just tell some are trying to break out. So I'm not sure whether these are green shoots that are going to be stamped upon or whether we're going to build upon them. But as I say, if it goes straight up from here, the sentiment is so negative, it will be perfect for a low. I just have to keep the door open for one more kind of shakeout, because there isn't a kind of reversal pattern that definitively says this is the end of the trend. It's sentiment and what we call accumulation, which is when the market is buying whilst everybody's really bearish and the market goes sideways. The next step is the market has to go up, and that's the confirmation. So that's the big move that I'm waiting for. It's just a question, are we going to get a shakeout, an early rally into sort of middle of Jan, then everyone gets really bullish again, and then a big shakeout, and then we get the low in. So will there be a double fake out? I hope not. I hope that this is just the low and we can just build from here, because as we've seen each week that we've looked at the markets, there seems to be a big disparity between where interest rates are now moving, because they're moving down, the dollar's weakening. That's perfect. Equities have been moving higher, although tech stocks aren't doing so well, but you wouldn't expect them to, because there's been this rotation. So everything in terms of risk on is continuing to build. Headlines are perfect as well, because they're all really bearish, expecting a recession and how bad things are going to be. But the markets are forward looking, and they're saying interest rates are going to come down. So the time to get excited is now. So don't wait for the end of the recession. It's too late. We want to buy ahead of the end of a recession, or even if there is one, because we know policymakers will become more accommodative to the corrections in the market. And also 2023 should be an interesting year, because into next year we've got the presidential elections, and yes, they're a long way away, but nobody wants a bad economy on their watch. So it's around this time that these thoughts of, right, okay, let's get inflation under control, but let's turn this ship around and get this economy buzzing, so that when they go into 2024, things are really moving again. So I think the bearishness that's surrounding the crypto kind of sector, for obvious reasons, is actually one. This is going to sound a bit strange, but if it's because of fraud, that's better than it's because it doesn't work. And some people are untrustworthy, and therefore they do the wrong things or make mistakes, as they might say. But that doesn't mean that the sector doesn't work. It's not the sector. There was a lot of fraud that happened in the internet, .com stocks right at the beginning of that, and it's happened many times before in the past. So I prefer that it was an individual or some individuals working as bad actors and trying to take advantage of an opportunity, rather than the actual technology not being any good. And I think it's the former rather than the latter, and therefore it will work its way into the system or out of the system, and then people will start focusing on what they can do with these projects, and they'll get excited again.
Yeah, I agree that sentiment is generally really low. And what always puzzles me about that is the kind of short-term vision of a lot of people. I guess it comes from my bias from being in investment for 20 years prior to this, in real estate investment, where the cycles are much, much, much longer than this. They get so in despair because it's not going to take off next week, right? And so they kind of get to this point that if it doesn't go up in the next 3 weeks, they're out. And so it makes it ripe for the market to kick one more time and shake out as many people as it can. The way I looked at it is I was feeling those same feelings the last bear market, is I just used it to dollar cost average. I put some money in 2017, partway through the bull run. It went up and then it went down below what I bought it at, which was really disappointing, but frequently happens because we come in after our friends have made a whole bunch of money. That's what finally gets our attention, which usually means when we first come in, we come in late, and then it retraces on us. So what do we do in that retracement? Do we just hold on to what we put in, decide, oh man, I'm going to just sit and wait till that goes up? And what happens is people eventually get tired and they sell and they leave, while the big whales and the smart people are accumulating. So what I did is try to do what the smart people were doing, which was accumulate while prices were cheap. And it can be frustrating because I would buy and then things would go down a little bit more, and then I'd buy and things would go down a little bit more. And frustrating from the standpoint of I could have bought so much more if I had known exactly where the bottom was going to be. The problem is that magic crystal ball that shows you exactly where the bottom is doesn't work. Nobody knows. The Rothschilds been investing for 2 centuries and they can't pick the bottom either. So it's like, for me, just dollar cost averaging at really low prices Eventually, the market did turn around, and my overall portfolio went up tremendously. It actually went up about 100x from the bottom, which is great. Not 100x from what I put in, because remember, it retraced from me on that. But from the very bottom that it hit, it went up 100x from there, which would have been amazing had I had a crystal ball and known to throw it all in on that exact day. But I don't have that, and nobody does, and that's an unrealistic expectation. So what I did was dollar cost average in. And so overall, my overall returns were about 35 to 40x on my portfolio, which is not bad in a 4-year span of time, right? Where else can you do those kind of numbers? So with proper expectations, people tend to do really well, and they realize, wow, prices are really low. Great. I'm going to find the projects I believe in and stock up on them. Paul waits for price confirmation that it's running up, which is also a really good strategy for those who trade in shorter time frames or even longer time frames. But what makes that work so well for Paul is Paul can do that across any of the different markets he trades in, because when you're waiting for that exact window, the exact window is not always all that long. So if you're just trading in crypto, you wait for confirmation, but then your period that you're holding isn't all that long. And then you get really, really bored for a long time, whereas Paul can trade across 15 or 20 different markets. And at any given time, he can find something near that window, right?
Yeah, that's the advantage of looking at lots of markets. You get to see different cycles. And we talked about it in one of the shows before about how the FX market for a very long time was extremely boring. There wasn't much going on for a good few years. It's pretty much the same with the bond markets. And then all of a sudden, they break out and you get these massive trends. The thing with crypto is it's always been so very volatile that people just get so used to that volatility. And at some point, it will mature and that volatility will calm down a bit. And in many ways, that's a good thing that it calms down a little bit, because it makes it so that well, I mean, look, it really depends on your outlook. If you're a short-term trader, the volatility is fantastic. If you're a long-term trader, you have to really time it right, because you could be getting in at a peak and then you have to wait for the trough and then the peak to come over again. And when you're playing in the altcoin space, obviously that's far more volatility and, very exciting, but also you can't play with leverage because it's just the percentages are mad. They're like, can be 30% in a day or 50% in a day. That's unheard of. That's absolutely unheard of in normal markets. So it's everything goes through cycles, and this is it's a very early, it's a sector that is still extremely early. It's still a nascent sector, and you'd expect this sort of volatility. So it's high risk, of course. And I think the main differences with the way I look at it is it's interesting that you talked about cycles, because cycles do affect the markets far more. And I'm doing more research into how cycles could be affecting, lots of different markets. But the interesting thing about what you were saying there is, if you applied a kind of dollar cost averaging strategy into, say, real estate over the long term, I think that works very well. Because in some ways you've got to do it with what is real money. I think the same has to apply if you're trading with altcoins, because you can't trade those with leverage because they are so volatile. So if you pick a portfolio, then you expect some to go to zero and some to go a long way. There isn't, a rule in trading that you shouldn't average a loss. And I think all rules are there for your own personal sort of take on what they are. For example, if you were looking at Luna Coin, Terra Luna, as it's going down, if you're averaging a loss as it's going down, you're going to get in trouble very, very quickly. If you're using leverage, it's going to blow all your capital. But if you're using real money and you do that, then yeah, it might be one of many that one takes a hit and something else doesn't. So it balances out. So I think each individual has to have their own way of approaching the market. Some people, use fundamentals, some use technicals, and some use a combination. But I don't look too much into the fundamentals. I rely on kind of what you say about the actual individual picks more than anything. And for me, it has to look right on the chart, because in my mind, if something is bullish, the chart will then move up. I will see a bullish pattern. I will be able to discern what the market is saying or thinking by looking at the price action. That also means I will miss out on a low. I will miss out on a fantastic buying opportunity where someone like yourself will say, you know what, this is a great project. It's been pushed too low by bad sentiment and all the other things. The baby's being thrown out with the bathwater here. I'm just going to load the boat. And I will never get something like that, because that's not how I can look. I can't look at the market like that. So I like to stick to my own discipline. Maybe I should do more research in your field, but I think possibly not. I'll just stick to the way I do it.
It might cloud the way that you do things, right? Because then you might get attached to something when it's screaming, the charts are screaming, no, don't buy. But if you become emotionally attached to it because you understand all the fundamentals, then it's hard to be objective anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there is that. So, and it's also, I think, interesting that when you're doing the analysis that you do, it does actually limit the amount of products you can look at, which is in some ways a good thing. So, because you can't buy everything, and so you've got to filter it out. So, I think that in some ways can help to kind of define what you want to have in your portfolio. But yeah, so I'm still excited about the sector, and I'm still excited about this year. And as I say, I'm not just saying this because of crypto, because of the show, or because of Definity. It's because obviously we look at everything. But I'm saying, because I just think that there is a big bull market coming, and even if it's a question of the rising tide lifts all boats, I think there will be some crossover and support coming in on this big risk on trade that will last at least 2023, 24, and possibly longer. And so, it'll be interesting to see when we get those signals in the individual kind of altcoins and the majors, when we're looking at the sort of the inverse of what we saw last year, towards the end of last year, where the charts were just going straight down. They're going to be going straight up. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah. Now, would you mind breaking into some of what you're looking at on the macro side of things?
Absolutely. Yeah. So a quick look at the macro side. So we've got the Dow Jones doing extremely well compared to the S&P and the NASDAQ. So there seems to be a rotation out of tech stocks into the Dow 30 stocks, which is not surprising. There's a few kind of bearish looking technical patterns coming out from some of the majors, and one of the ones that I just wanted to highlight for you is this chart of Apple, which I don't like at all. So this chart of Apple is looking like a big top, like a big double top. So I think that's going to go lower. So the reason why I'm highlighting Apple is because this is like the bellwether. I thought it was doing okay. I thought this was going to be a constriction and break higher, but this is not good. It's broken below its June low from last year. So I think there's going to be a period of downward price action there. And given that it's one of the sort of most loved tech stocks out there, I think that the broader tech scene will be under a bit of pressure. But that doesn't mean that that's necessarily bearish. I just think it will correct compared to the Dow, which has been doing very well. So this may well go sideways while tech goes down. If this can go up, fantastic. The main things that we're looking at in terms of the broader macro themes are interest rates going lower. And this is the 10-year yield, which, despite all the fears, remember all the fears about inflation, all the fears about rates going to be hiked by 75 basis points at a clip. And that's all been pulled back. It's all been reined back. And it's all like, you look at the 10-year yield, which topped out at 4.34%, and it's gone sideways. It may even go lower, which would be really interesting. So 2 year going sideways, 6 month money, that's going slightly sideways. It's maybe trying to go a bit higher. It's actually difficult to see on this particular chart because of the moving average that's distorting it. But in any case, the interest rate profile, the important one for me is the 10-year money, and that isn't blasting into new highs and worrying me about inflation. This is behaving quite well. So all that leads to, the weaker dollar. So the dollar's been weakening and the moving averages are turning down. Short, medium-term moving averages is down. We've got a downward trend here. It's being painted into a bit of a corner because we've got this upward trend from May last year, and it's heading towards that. Now, I was wondering if we were going to get some form of rebound, because the market, when it comes down, can be quite symmetrical. So what you might see this rebound here. We get a kind of symmetrical rebound here, and then a break of this trend line. So that's my expectation is still for a weaker dollar. And whilst that's going on, I'm comfortable with a broad risk on strategy. Something else that was positive is, let me show you the chart of, where is it now? Natural gas. So for us in Europe, where natural gas is, the prices have been extortionate. You can see how we've gone from a high of 800. Let me change that to US dollars. Chart isn't particularly, it's not massively different, but it is different. So if we price this in US dollars, this is natural gas. So it's trading at 10, it's now trading at 4. So look at that. I mean, that's a massive decline. And it's a big burden on consumers. It's a big burden on businesses that energy prices have been so high. So the fact that it's come down so much is a massive boost, and people aren't really talking about it. So they were talking a lot about energy prices and they've kind of stopped, but this positive factor isn't being focused on. And it's good for inflation, it's good for business, it's good for individuals, it's good for everybody, really. And so I think this is, again, something that could, if interest rates go lower and the price of fuel and oil has gone lower as well, and gas has gone lower, then those are two positive factors that are going to support risk on. And that's why I think after a consolidation, we're going to see a big rally this year. So very quickly over to the majors, as we mentioned at the top of the show, you've got Bitcoin, which is still going sideways, hasn't taken out this low here, which was the fear low in November. So, November, December, it held it, and now we're in January. Why isn't it trading down? This is my big question here, given the sentiment. Now, this is not enough for a reversal pattern. We need to get it through this level here, which is 17,592. That would create a small double bottom. Then we need to break this trend line. Then we can start talking turkey, as they say, about a major rally. So we're in a holding pattern here. I have to just kind of wait and see. But I'm very impressed with the fact that it's held up. I'm like, it's not unusual for the market to do this when it's creating a low, a major low, because sentiment, as I say, stays bearish, yet the price action doesn't follow through. Same deal with Ethereum, which is painted into this corner. Volatility's dropped a hell of a lot. Didn't even break its November low, hasn't broken the 2022 low. So even though everything was bearish, it still didn't manage to get through here. So what would tell me that this is creating a base, or, well, it looks like it's creating a base, but what would confirm it's creating a base would be a sharp upward move. Usually the beginning of a trend is a sharp kind of kickoff where there's this, how can I put it? You get this realization by a maybe heavyweights, it just depends, that the market has seen the low, shorts get covered, and they start buying. They see something that you probably won't even hear about for a few months that's positive, and they get very excited, pile in now, and then later on you get the reason for why the market has been moving up. So it's got a bit of a way to create a massive long-term base, which would For Ethereum, it'd be all the way up here at 2031, because that's the major resistance point from this rally, and it actually defines where this base is or where it could potentially be. But as you can see, we've got this upward trend here, we've got this downward trend here, which is looking a little bit symmetrical. And symmetrical triangles, in normal circumstances, if the sentiment wasn't so bearish, you'd be calling this lower. But it's almost like, well, it's had its chance to go lower. What's it waiting for? You know, what sort of bad news do you want to make this go down? And after a while, you think, well, this got to be saturated. The bears have got to be overly saturated. And if they can't get control of the market, the bulls will take over. So let's see what happens. It would not surprise me to see a breakout to the upside in these conditions. So, yeah.
Agreed. Do you mind if we jump over and look at Cardano or ADA as we look at some of the majors, since this definitely falls in the majors category, in my opinion?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And this is, I'm glad you mentioned this one, because again, this is, okay, so the trend is down. You can see the trend is down, but we're getting this interesting, you know, sharp price action that's literally just starting today. So I was looking at this today going, okay, we might look at Cardano. So I better just have a quick look at it and see what's going on. And we get this sharp move up. Now, this is not enough to say the trend has changed. I mean, come on, it's only like 1 or 2 days worth of price action, but it's the speed with which this has moved up that's caught my eye. So the fact that this is quite a sharp bullish bar, and it's what is it leading to? So I like the fact that this is moving up. Also, Solana has done something similar. You know, look at that. We're looking at this. This is a breakdown point, and it's made this spike, and now it's coming back up to this resistance point. Now, it would be really nice if we got a hit of this, move down, a reversal pattern, like an inverse head and shoulders, something like that, to complete the base. I mean, I'd be really shouting from the rooftops about that if that plays out. But there's a danger in technical analysis where you can sort of imagine patterns and not, you know, you've got to wait for them to complete is kind of the summary there. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But this 14.76 level is really interesting because it's got 1, 2, 3 times its hits coming up for a fourth. If it fails, goes down a bit and then back up and breaks it, it will just be such a clean trigger for a base. So there's a few interesting things going on. But, you know, back to Cardano, it's got to start from somewhere, hasn't it? If it's going to turn around, we got to see the beginnings of a trend reversal in some form of small price action. So it's not enough to change this downward trend. It's accelerated down. Actually, we could probably even draw another downward trend line here to show the acceleration. But it's coming close to that right now. And if it can break through that, you know, it starts to get interesting. It's got a bit of work to do, but this is an interesting rally. I like this price action. We want to see if it can build on it.
That's good news. Well,
I mean,
those of us that have been buying during this downturn, I know that a lot of people are looking forward to things taking off or at least turning around.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, you know, if with capital that you could afford to lose, I just want to phrase it the right way, because technically, you know, you've still got to be really careful. But I would take a punt on this. Like, I would buy it here with a stop, because for me, the downside risk is small because I parachute out at a very small loss.
Mm-hmm.
But I quite like the way it's moved quickly. So, you know, I'm giving it a kind of speculative, highly speculative buy. Part of the reason for that is that I know how much you kind of rate the project and the people behind it. But part of that is like, you know, that is quite an interesting move, and I want to see if it gets built upon.
Yeah, it's amazing that it's gotten this cheap. But that happens because as far as the strength of the project, I think Cardano's continued to prove itself very strong and a lot of solid development, and they keep improving it. And it hasn't had the major hiccups that like Solana has and some of the other blockchains have. So Let's look at a Cardano ecosystem project called AADA, which is a DeFi project on Cardano.
Oh yeah, so this is the one that we found on Nomics, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is. I mean, look, when we first looked at the chart, I was like, "Whoa, what's going on here? It looks like a massive downward trend." But then you sort of zoom in and you see, actually, this is really interesting because you've got what looks like a left shoulder, a minor head, but then a right shoulder with this sharp green candle. So is this forming a base? It looks like it has been from kind of November to now. Without knowing anything about the project, I would be I can't really draw lines on this thing, but because it's not on the other charting system, so apologies for that. But I would say this again is worth a buy because it looks like this is basing. Now, my downside would be I would just put a downside stop at the low, just below the low, and not leverage, just put some money into it and sit and wait and see what happens. But the reason why I'm happy to do that is because this trend has gone down, but then it looks like it's flattened out. It has flattened out and could be developing into a base. Now, I don't mind buying something ahead of the breakout of a base. So really what you should do is wait for this level here at 23 cents to go, because that would confirm the base is complete. But when you get price action that's rushing into a trigger, I don't mind buying it ahead of it. Sometimes it fails, but that's kind of a choice that I make. If it continues going through, you've got in at a better level. If it fails, you can bail out with a small loss, or maybe even capture a bit of a profit if it keeps running in the short term. But that looks like quite an interesting pattern there. So I think it's a good one to call. So well done for whoever picked that.
Yeah, let's take a look at one of our viewers did a good write-up on two of them that he wants us to look at. And I always give those high priority if a viewer takes a long time to kind of write up what they like about the fundamentals of them. So he had us to look at two of them. So this is PM, and he says CWAR is a PvP blockchain game currently on Solana's network. Public test beta released in the last few weeks, and feedback appeared generally positive. Now trading in the 1 cent territory with the all-time high over $5. A project can survive depths of bear and officially launch as next bull market nears. It could be a great risk hedge, presuming being on Solana blockchain isn't an issue. Rumors are that they're looking to move to another blockchain too.
Would that be a good thing if they move to another blockchain? I'm not sure what the effect of that would be.
A lot of projects went to Solana and decided to build on them a year ago, and CryoWar falls in this because they were supposed to be the fastest blockchain. They've had some big hiccups, but it seemed like they were super solid, in part because of the backing of Sam Bankman-Fried. It was supposed to be one of the richest people in crypto. Turns out that there was a lot of fraud involved with him, and he has not ended up being a strong thing for Solana blockchain's ecosystem. I think Solana will survive. I don't know if they need to move, but you kind of get tarnished. Almost every altcoin on Solana is down even farther than some of the other things. So CryoWar, though, looks interesting. During the bear market, last bear market, I played a few different games trying to figure out where blockchain gaming was going to go. And I played one that was in line with the way CryoWar is going, where it's kind of you're up above the heroes, and different heroes, you can do certain types of moves. I forget the game that I played, but it had a lot of people playing it. Never as big as like World of Warcraft or something like that, which was, the biggest game in the world for a long time, but still a lot of players and a lot of interest. So I think CryoWar has a good chance to do something, and I think this write-up is right on. And I looked at the pricing of it, and it was priced at the seed pricing. It was priced at 1.4 cents. So right now it's actually trading a little bit below seed pricing. The private sale was 1.8 cents, seed was 1.4, and the IDO price was 2.8 cents. So it's now trading below even those prices.
Yeah. From a technical point of view, it is flattening out in terms of how fast the downtrend has been going. So we've seen this a little bit before, where we got this price action here, which was basing out, and then it kind of failed, went sideways, consolidated, a bit lower, then tried to rally again, and it failed. And then it's had this sharp stair step down, and this price action here it's looking like it's can you see how it's sort of curving, in which means that there is definitely some interest coming in. So people are definitely buying it as it's going down, and it seems to have kind of stopped into a sideways range. Now, I'm tempted to say buy, but I need a little bit more, because we are literally so close to the all-time low of this chart that it would be really breaking a rule for me to say buy it. I want to see a bit more of a rally. Even if the market rallies, it might look like I've missed the boat, but we will get a pullback, or we should get a pullback. I put this level here up at 0.017, nearly 2 cents. For me, that would be the line where if it crosses through there, I'd have to have an automatic, that's where you get in, just in case this is off to the races. So where we are now, it looks like it's trying to start the beginning of a base, but it's not enough for me to step in. So I'm excited by what you've said there, but for me, it's a wait on the technicals. But I do think you need a level that sort of tripwires you into the market, just in case this becomes quite a hot, product, and the trend starts to run away. That might look like quite a big move, but if this is a base, then it's going to go all the way back up to, there's a long way for it to retrace to. So I might miss the first bit, but if the trend has turned, then there'll be a long way for it to go.
For me, it'd be a wait too, and I'll share why. Not that the price isn't good. The current price is good. I just think it's going to get even better. And here's why. Okay, so the beta currently, or the public test beta, released in the last few weeks, which probably corresponds to this price increase here, right? So now that it's out of the limelight, it's then been trading downward again. Look at the market cap is 2.1 million. The fully diluted market cap is still quite a bit higher, meaning only 1/6 of the tokens are in supply. Look at that, 170 million out of the 1 billion tokens are in supply. And so though it's below the seed price, what often happens during these bear markets is that things retrace a lot below the seed price. So though this is a good project to keep an eye on, I think they could do well when money comes into the gaming sector of crypto, which I think is a huge area where blockchain will revolutionize gaming because of true ownership. But I just suspect it's going to get cheaper, and then it might break down from here. And maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe it won't. But there's lots of opportunities to get below seed price. And though that market cap looks pretty low, that's not very low compared to some of the other places I could put my money, especially considering that, only 17% of the tokens are in circulation. So that's just some concern I have. Plus, if there's hiccups, if they do move to a different blockchain and there's hiccups in that, that's not a lot of fun. So for this, I'm just patiently going to wait and watch. Great suggestion, though, by PM. Let's look at his other one he suggested, which is another great suggestion. AGIX. He says, with the advent of mass adoption of AI, hold on. This one is one of the best projects around at current discount prices. Is this one of the best projects around at current discount prices? Where do you see the utility that will affect the price ultimately? Looking forward to your further informed opinion. Okay, well, he asked some really good questions. Let's take a look at your screen, and let's take a look at the price action first.
Yeah, I think the fundamental view on this will be key, won't it? But from a technical point of view, it is interesting, because look, what we've got here, we've got a downward trend, but it's not that aggressive from where this chart started. There may be more history, I'm not sure, but I can only go with what's in front of me at the moment. But we're getting a consolidation. So we had a consolidation here, breakout, and then a very similar consolidation. Now, in some of the altcoins that we've looked at before, the breakouts have been to the downside and quite sharp, and then the markets try to rally back up. I prefer it this way round, where at least the sharp moves are to the upside, because if this is going to be a base, and it's not quite yet, but it's forming some form of base, it's just not complete, then if this is going to be symmetrical, it will go sideways for a bit longer, so probably to the end of January, and then around this time, at around 6.7 cents, that will be my tripwire to buy it. And then the next level, obviously, is where this peak is now. It's possible that that's, sometimes when we look at a chart, the data isn't correct. It's like it's just been input incorrectly, and therefore the market hasn't traded there. I've got a feeling the market did trade there. So a crossing of that level would be a very important technical signal to show that this is based and there's more strength ahead. But I do like this level here that I mentioned, 0.67 or 6.7 cents, because if you look at how the resistance has gone, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times it's tried to break out there, and we have quite a nice base. It's not managed to get any lower. So I think this is a really interesting one, but it's a wait for now, because I think it won't move for a few weeks, and then the closer it gets to this level, the more interested I become. So if it gets drawn to it quicker, then I think I need to sort of take some action and look to buy it on the breakout. But for the moment, it's going to be a wait.
Yeah, let me share some fundamentals on this. So AGIX is Singularity Net. So here it is on CoinMarketCap, and its current market cap is 55 million, with over half of it in supply. So you see 1.1 billion tokens in supply with a max supply of 2 billion. Okay, so here's a little bit of history from the beginning. It started when it first came out at $1.50. It hit these little peaks in September. When was this? April of 2021. So when the market went absolutely crazy, hit 52 cents. So it went up from, looks like 2 cents to 52 cents, and has come back down in this retracement to about 5 cents. Now, interestingly enough about Singularity Net is it has to do with AI, right? And really, do we know where AI is going to go? I don't. I wish I did. AI could be actually the thing that ends humanity, so it's dangerous. And it can be fantastic too, because then you can program artificial intelligence to do lots of things, make little robots that can do lots of productivity tasks that can increase the wealth across the whole planet significantly. So it's kind of this nebulous thing in our mind as we think about it. We're like, yay, AI is the future. And it's like, well, hopefully responsible AI is, because otherwise AI will be the future. And we've all seen the Terminator movie. One of the leading people in AI is Dr. Ben Gorsel, who is one of the founders of this team. So I do like, when I'm looking at a project to invest in, that the team is substantive, right? And I especially like it when there's a big pullback and prices are cheap. Where is this going to go? I can't say I fully understand where this is going to go. I don't. But sometimes I don't fully need to. I pick projects based on a narrative that I think works. Is AI a narrative that I think works? Yes. From bear market to bull market, I can imagine it does really, really well. Secondly, is this a strong team? Well, it's one of the strongest teams. So I like that about it. So is it a buy for me? Well, the only downside I have to this is I wish it were cheaper, because 55 million, a lot of the stuff that I'm buying has a market cap much smaller than this. But because the fundamental question I ask in the bear market is, can it go 100x from here in a bull market? And that doesn't necessarily mean it will, and maybe it overshoots that, but can it go 100x from here? And the answer to that is yes, it could. Will it? I really can't say I know. My magic crystal ball doesn't work, but it's in a territory that's pretty interesting to me. So I think I may already own some of this. If not, I might have to pick some up. Just I'm okay with where the price is. Obviously, I'd like to get it cheaper. So for me, this might be a buy if I don't already have some. So I'd have to look through and see. I might already have some. Great suggestions by PM. Let's jump to some of our other suggestions. Let me see here.
I mean, just a quick comment on AI. I think
Sure.
it is quite amazing what you can do if you played with Chat GPT, GPT. It's just incredible. I don't know if you've tried it, but I also found some limitations as well, which I thought was really interesting. So it can write some really beautiful sort of poems and stories and stuff like that, and it gives you coding examples, which is just great, and it's really clever. I asked it to rhyme a word 100 times, so find a word that rhymes 100 times, and it did it, but it kept repeating the words. So I said, don't repeat the words, and it just kept repeating the words. So I found something interesting in it. I thought it's doing some really complex stuff really well, what looked like, really well. And then something really easy where it just say, sorry, there's not enough words or something like that. It just kept repeating them and just wouldn't not do it, if you see what I mean. So I thought that's interesting. But AI is, it's not real intelligence. It's, people have to understand that it's not real intelligence. It's just following rules, and that's all it is. It appears to be intelligent, but it's not. And so therefore I see it as a really fantastic tool that can do.
It gets to a point where it does become really intelligent. Like, was it Google that was running and they had created two, and the two AIs started talking to each other in a language that they made up, and they couldn't understand, so they unplugged them because they're like, who knows what they're doing and saying and screaming, but they had made up their own language that they started communicating with clicks. And yeah, like I was like, Elon Musk is very concerned about AI, and I'd have to say his technical know-how and knowledge is above most people on this planet. So I think we're all right to be a little bit concerned, but it is artificial intelligence, meaning all these rules are programmed till it gets to a certain point that it can learn beyond that. And that's the point that we should be excited about and worried about, in my opinion. Cautious with, right? So
yeah, I still see it as a tool. I think it'll only be possibly dangerous when it's linked to you as an individual, like when you've got AI that's running on your brain, to help you with a certain task. And I think there'll be a lot of, before we get a lot of that stuff sorted, there'll be a lot of medical problems that are solved, like people who've got quadriplegic, or whether they've got some kind of brain issue, then those will be solved first. And if we can do that, that would be really great. But I don't think, they're still not sentient. They still don't know themselves what they're doing, right? They have no idea. It's literally, you pull the power and that's it. It doesn't know, there's nothing there. There's no consciousness. So that's the main difference. There's no driving force other than what you drive it or tell it to care about. So it gives the impression of being real, but it's not really. It's or I'm not saying it's not useful. It's definitely useful, and it can obviously do things that humans can't. I mean, I think the worry would be with AI robots that are set in armies to fight for your country or take down cities and stuff like that. That's dangerous. That's because as an individual, an individual soldier can only do so much, but a robotic soldier with AI can obviously do much more. And anyone who's watched Black Mirror, some of the episodes I don't know if you've seen it, but
I'm
on
gonna have to
Netflix.
watch that. I've heard that enough that like it
Yeah,
sounds like a good series.
yeah, no, it's fantastic. Yeah, there's one called Metalhead, I think, which is I think you'd see what I mean. Very, very good, very interesting. But that's already there. That technology's there. But yeah, so I'm excited about AI, and I'm not too worried about it at the moment. But I understand the fears, though. I really do.
Where it can go down the road. We're still a little ways away from that. Let's see. What is next? Oh, so we were gonna look at, we've covered this. Let's look at wax.
So Wax, yeah.
WAXP.
Yeah, so this is one again that's very similar to the previous chart in terms of the short-term price action, i.e., this is in a downward trend. So we've got the strong downward trend here, and trades really nicely. I mean, look at that. That is the line it needs to break to end this downward trend. So it's 1, 2, 3 points. Now, should it do it here? Yeah, it'd be great if it did, because this is where all the support comes in. This is all the prior support going back to 2020. So this is the reason why this is the support, because this was a what we call an accumulation period, and then the market started the trend from here. So it's dipped a little below that, but you're not going to be completely exact on where these lows will be. So I like the fact that it's come back to, well, I mean, I don't like the fact that it's gone down. I'm interested in the fact that it's in a support zone, and I want to see it react in that support zone and then turn around. But for me, the trigger that tells me that this trend is over, this downward trend is over, where I'd be interested in buying it would be a break of this downward trend line. So it hasn't done that yet. A clue that it might be ready to do it is it recovering 48, this 0.048 level. That's important because it was support here, a little bit of resistance. But, given if it just goes sideways, it will reach this downward trend line, and then we get the trigger. But for the moment, whilst it's below that line, I can't touch it.
Yeah, so Paul, it's for you, it's either a wait or a sell at this.
Yeah, it's definitely a wait.
Yeah, for me, that isn't a trend that I'm going to get excited into. Now, Wax is an interesting project. It was one of the first projects or blockchains that were really good for NFTs and being a lot cheaper than the ETH network. And so at first, I think the first Major League Baseball cards were released on Wax, as well as they got like Street Fighter and other things launching on Wax, because Wax was so cheap. The transactions were so cheap and happened relatively fast. And so they attracted a lot of stuff their way. I don't know whether they've kept up the momentum, though. I think even some, like, if I'm remembering right, the baseball cards moved to a different blockchain, or the license with Major League Baseball went to a different blockchain. So I don't know if they're able to continue to stay relevant. That's a question in my mind. They did have like Garbage Pail Kids on them, and their idea was to be for collectibles. That's why they called it Wax, like the original Wax packs. Like when you bought Garbage Pail Kids, they were in Wax packs, or baseball cards, they're in Wax packs. So their idea was to be the chain for NFTs, and they were very early in their development towards this. And so do they continue to stay relevant and have a long lifespan? That I don't know. That I'm concerned about that, and maybe the concern, I'll be wrong on that, but that's what's going through my mind. There may be things I'm not aware of that has happened because I haven't followed it closely in a while, but let me share. This is Wax's fundamentals, and you're looking at $102 million market cap, which is still a significant market cap, with a fully diluted market cap of 173 million, which means about 60% of the tokens are in supply. You can see it's been at a price way back in 2018. Now, this was the previous bull run. It was at 250, and before that, when it first came out, this candle goes all the way up to 460. So we'll see what happens. I did buy a bunch of the baseball cards because they were the first series of baseball cards being released on the blockchain. I bought a bunch of those, and I haven't really followed up since. I just kind of wait until the market starts talking about them when I look to sell. So I don't follow baseball very closely. I had to do some research to figure out who some of the top baseball players were so I could figure out which ones I wanted to buy that I didn't get out of the packs that I bought. And yeah, we'll see what happens with WAX. Will they probably do good in the next bull run? Probably. Will they survive long term? That's a concern of mine. And maybe there's lots of details I don't know. If somebody from the WAX team is watching this and wants to join me, I would love to do an AMA with you and see where you're at and what you're working on. So for me, it's just a total wait, especially with that chart. I'm not going to FOMO in. I'm not going to follow that chart and FOMO in at those prices. I do like buying cheap, and so that is the advantage of where it's at, right? It's really cheap compared to even where it's been in the last year, all the way down at 4 cents. But everything's cheap right now. Everything's way down. And so I have a lot to choose from. And so am I going to put my funds into WAX? I don't know enough about it fundamentally and where the future is going to be with it that I would say yes to that right now. All right, let's take a look at ICP and then Animal Concerts. And I have some news on Animal Concerts when we get to that. But ICP is Internet Computer.
Yeah. So, yeah, internet computer, as you say, everything's down. This is down as well, unfortunately. But it's not unusual to see the charts looking like this, given that this is where we are with the sector. The question for me is, when I look at something like this, yeah, it's down. Can I justify buying it? I can't really. I have to say that it needs to rally and break at least a downward trend line or significant resistance before I could consider getting in. The good news is there may be some of that coming up. So we've got this $4.58 level, which I'm drawing because that was the low here. So support and resistance tends to reverse. Had a big reaction when it went through it. So it dropped through like a stone, came and touched it again, and it's come off again. So if we can break 458, that would create a double bottom pattern, which is the first step to a reversal. Now, that would be a relatively small reversal pattern, given that this is quite a big downward trend. So it would give a short-term buy, but whether it would be a long-term buy, we'd have to wait and see. But at least that could be a potential trigger. So if we draw the downward trend line in, you can see it's pretty close as well. So it would do two things. If it got through this 458, it would break the downward trend line, and it would also trigger this double bottom pattern. So this would be base 1. This would be base 2. And moving through here would be the signs of strength that would allow us to trigger into it. But for the moment, given that it hasn't done it yet, I'd have to wait. So, but it trades nicely. It's got quite an interesting look to it in terms of its trading signature. So, yeah, I'd like to pick up on that in a few weeks or maybe a month. So if we don't look at it, just remind us.
Yeah, at some point this will have a turnaround. Now, some of the things that I don't love about it is the market cap is still over $1 billion, right? So can it go 100x from here? Yes, it could, but that's already a significantly high market cap. Now, if we change on what I like about CoinMarketCap is we can look at something called the market cap and where it started out at. So the market cap was way high when it first launched. And I remember when it first launched, everybody was talking about it. And like, oh my gosh, do you have any? And I looked at where the market cap was, and it had just launched, and the market cap was like 50 billion. So wow. No, I was not going to buy it. And I'm surprised anybody was talking about it and excited about it because the market cap was so high already. Oh my gosh. And so it launched in 2021 when the market was still pretty hot during May. So I get that part, but like, gosh, it was so dang high. So I knew, no way am I going to touch it. And sure enough, it has sank tremendously from them because some of the tokens vested. In fact, a lot of them vested already. A bunch of their tokens are in circulation. you can see that the market cap is 1.1 billion and the fully diluted market cap is 1.95 billion. So that means a bunch of the tokens are already vested, which means they got vested and then dumped into here, which is part of what decreased the price. And so thank goodness I didn't buy. Now it's starting to get to an attractive price that maybe I could look into it a little bit deeper, but it really doesn't fit in my methodology unless I could understand why it's so undervalued and has a strong chance to go 100x from here. I don't know why I'd buy it, because those are my rules, right? Like, it's got to have a strong chance to do 100x, and I really have to like the people behind it and the narrative. And I can't say I understand the narrative and the strong proposition value, because really they're a competitor to like ETH. Like the internet computer, which is really what ETH was sold at when it first came out. And so I think their goal was to do it faster and better. But aren't there a lot of third and fourth generation blockchains working on doing it faster and better? So we'll see. I'll keep an eye on it. But even at the current price, the market cap's too high for my methods to be interested, unless I could see why I felt like there was a strong chance it could still do 100x from here. If not, like, I don't need any more blue chips from here, and that's definitely a high enough market cap. It really could be considered a blue chip. It's a good suggestion, and I'm more on the risky side. There are a lot of people in the audience who might prefer more blue chips than myself, and so this would be one you could look at. I mean, the price action at some point, what goes down will go up, and so it's just with my more risk tolerant approach that this isn't a fit for me. If I did like a lot more blue chips, I'd be watching this a lot more closely, because at some point this will flip around, it will bottom out, and it will go up. So for that part, it's really good. Let's take a look at Animal Concerts.
Yeah. So Animal Concerts, there's a lot of zeros before we get to a number on this. So I suppose you could put a small amount in and just treat it like a casino, red or black, and then just forget about it. In terms of the price action, obviously it's been downwards, and it looks like it's trying to reverse, though, which is interesting, because look at this rally here is this looks like it's the start of something. Now there's some, I'm not going to go into too much detail about Elliott wave, but there is something in the world of Elliott wave that says the beginning of a new trend is confirmed when you see a structure of 5 upward waves, and we've only got 3. So we've got 1, 2, 3. So if we wanted to confirm it in terms of Elliott wave that we've hit a low, we'd have to see one more bigger wave, and the structure of that just doesn't look right for the beginning of a like what would be classed as a 5-wave sequence in terms of Elliott wave theory. Having said that, I'm interested in the fact that this is such a sharp move, and we've got very strong resistance with which to play with. So it may be basic, may take a bit longer to base. So if it comes back down and then goes up again and takes out this, 0.038 of a cent, then that for me would be a buy signal. But it's almost like, it's trading at such a low level that, you could stick $100 in and forget about it. But but it's look, it's trying to turn around here. That's the first step. It hasn't done the second step, which is to create what I would say is a solid enough base. It's just showing some strength, but it hasn't based out yet. So there's no double bottom. It's rallying up from here. So clearly there's some news out about it, and we've got to see whether these prices stick. So far they're trading in a really good range. It's not come all the way back down again. This is relatively good compared to the sharpness of the rally. But we need to see that again, and for it to stay in this upper area for it to confirm a base, and which is still possible. But we have to remember that there's obviously been quite a strong downward trend here, and to reverse it, we need a very solid pattern. But that's the beginnings potentially, which is great. So it's a really good suggestion. It's a great one to keep an eye on. Just a bit more work before we can confirm it's created a base.
Yeah. Now, the news I had on this one is I just spoke to the CEO, and he's going to come join us in 2 weeks for another Ask Me Anything interview.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, I'm excited about that. Like you said, the price, when it gets to this many zeros, what I do is I refer to it as 0.027 cents, because otherwise, so many zeros, it just is confusing. But if we say 0.027 cents, at least I'm able to wrap my mind around it a little bit more, because, man, you get so many zeros and it just it loses relevance. Now, the fully diluted market cap is 3.5 million. We don't know how many are in circulations of the 12.5 billion total supply. So maybe half, maybe less than half. So it's got a fairly low market cap, which is really good. And what they do is virtual reality concerts in the metaverses, right? So the team knows all the major players like Alicia Keys, Billy Ray Cyrus, Snoop Dogg, Robin Thicke, and so their goal is to help facilitate like concerts in, say, Decentraland or Sandbox or the different metaverses out there. And so that's really their goal.
So that's interesting, because then if this tracks, maybe this will track the Meta share price, which obviously was going off quite aggressively recently, but has found a base and started bouncing. So I wonder whether this is bouncing with it and whether it will be correlated to it.
Yeah. So I think what they're doing is going to be the way of the future. We've already seen some of these virtual concerts, and some of the console games do really, really well. I think as these metaverses and these metaverse games or these MMORPGs, I think having concerts in them is the way of the future, because how many people can go to an Alicia Keys concert, right? Maybe 20,000, 50,000, or if it's a big stadium, maybe 200,000. But if they could then use some software to allow at the same time people to join virtually through a game, through some different cameras that then interact with the software that put it in the metaverse, and they could give those people a ticket for, say, $5. You might have another 500,000 people join, and that's another 2.5 million for that one concert, right? So the revenue stream there is amazing, and the inclusion by people who maybe in the Philippines, they'll never be able to go to an Alicia Keys concert or some other artist that they're a really big fan of, could feel like they're part of it. So I really think it extends the ability of these artists to reach communities around the world that'll probably never be able to see them in person. But the next best thing is to be able to see them from their computer in a kind of a virtual reality setting.
How realistic do you think we could get the technology to be? So do you think we could get to the point where it really feels like you're actually there? Because I guess that has to be where it's going to go. And when it does, that is just going to be amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. So maybe there's different ways it can go. Like the video game ones, I saw my kid in one of them, and like their character could essentially fly around and move anywhere that they wanted. So will they have seats assigned? Will they just be able to kind of move anywhere and kind of look around and see other people too? I don't know how that plays out. If they have like seats assigned, it just kind of puts you in your seat and allows you to see from your seat. But then you can see the avatars of people around you as you kind of turn your screen around. Or if you put on a virtual headset, right, then you would really feel like a VR headset. You would really feel like you were there, because then you could look around, see the other people next to you and their avatars, and that could be quite cool. So how this comes together exactly, I don't know, other than it's already a proven thing that there's appetite and demand for this, right? So I think gaming is going to go towards blockchain in the next 5 to 10 years, that anything that's not on the blockchain giving people true ownership of their items is going to be a relic of the past. And virtual reality concerts is going to be a huge part of gaming and metaverses. So I think their position, the narrative is positioned with the right connections extremely well. And yeah, I'm I'm looking forward. I've interviewed Colin a couple times, twice, I think. And so, yeah, looking forward to it again.
Brilliant.
Cool. Well, thank you, Paul, for joining us. And thanks for the audience picks. If you have something you want us to look at next week, give us up to 2 suggestions, but only up to 2. And if you write out the fundamentals behind it that you like about it, we'll give it priority, because sometimes we get more picks than we're able to cover in one show. Thank you, Paul.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Great to be here. See you next week.
All right. Yes, it feels so slow when it's like this and the market is down, and that's just part of being in a bear market. And it can be frustrating, but it's not frustrating if you look at everything on sale and you take advantage of the opportunity that everything is super cheap right now. Now, if you buy crap, then who knows if it will survive into the next bull market. And that's why you want to do some analysis on the team itself, on what is it that the project's doing? Is there room for that to grow and demand for that type of thing that they're offering? You combine that with the good team, and that's what you're looking for. And there are plenty of projects out there with a good narrative and a good team that are really, really cheap right now. And that part is really exciting, because money does come back in the market eventually. And when it does, things take off. Now, this wrap is for all of you to reinforce the principles we share here on a weekly basis. Thank you so much for joining us.
Came into the space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, you buy before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. Principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Why when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this road cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.